If you ask almost anyone today, who they trust for objective, fact-based news, the answer, well, it usually comes with this heavy sigh, right? A real sense of cynicism. Nobody. This erosion of faith in media, it's everywhere. But the source material we're looking at today, it offers a pretty startling diagnosis. It argues this isn't just like bad actors or sloppy reporting.
Right.
It's a technological and structural crisis. And it's rooted, they say, entirely in centralization, the whole architecture of how we get information today, fundamentally hostile to truth-telling.
That framing is so important because it takes the problem beyond just editorial choices, It makes it systemic failure. We're genuinely witnessing the undermining of the press's core role in a free society. That basic function, inform the public, scrutinize power, hold people accountable. And the documents we've gone through, they confirm this. This vital civic function is being dismantled by the very structures, corporate ownership, opaque algorithms that control information flow right now, globally.
Yeah. So our mission today for this deep dive is to look at a pretty radical proposal. It's designed to fix this structural failure, not by putting Band-Aids on the old system,
Right, that's bigger than that.
but by enacting a really foundational shift. We're exploring this comprehensive argument for moving power away from these huge corporate giants and back to independent journalists, powered by self-governing digital communities that they build. And the specific solution we're focusing on is this tech framework called Web4.Community.
And look, this isn't just an academic exercise. It's presented as a genuine blueprint for independence.
Okay.
It carefully connects the human side ethical reporting, which they really champion through citizen journalism, with the infrastructure needed to make that reporting secure, censorship resistant, financially viable, and truly self-governing.
Right.
The goal is a structural setup where independence isn't just something you hope for, but something that technology actually helps guarantee.
Okay, let's unpack this. We really have to start by laying out just how severe the failures are that brought us to this point, this need for such a radical idea. So the sources pinpoint two core systemic failures, both stemming directly from this centralization of media control. First, economic extraction. Second, algorithmic manipulation.
Right.
We're talking about essentially existential threats to having an informed public. And these aren't accidents, the sources argue. They're predictable outcomes of the way things are designed right now.
Let's start with that first one.
Yeah.
The crisis of trust and corporate influence. It's pretty straightforward, really. When news outlets get swallowed up by these enormous corporate umbrellas, the main goal inevitably shifts. It moves from public service toward shareholder return. And that compromise, that shift in priority, is where the public skepticism really starts to dig in.
But I guess the pushback is, don't these places claim they have firewalls? Editorial independence protected internally. Doesn't every big outlet say the newsroom is separate from corporate interests?
They do say that, yes. But the sources argue the influence is often much more subtle. It's pervasive. It's structural. It operates way below the level of some direct phone call saying, kill that story.
Okay.
Think about political ties, sure. But maybe more importantly, just the commercial interests. If a network's parent company, say, is a massive defense contractor, or maybe a major advertiser is caught up in a huge environmental scandal.
Right.
The incentive structure itself means that coverage of those things is likely to be softened, maybe delayed, maybe avoided altogether. It just makes business sense not to rock the boat too much.
So it's not always a direct command. It's more like preemptive self-censorship, just to maximize profit and avoid friction with the owners or the big advertisers.
Precisely. And that conflict of interest, it doesn't just harm the reporting quality, it erodes the legitimacy of the whole institution.
Yeah.
The sources are really clear on this. A truly free media has to operate where its only master is the truth and the public interest. And that kind of setup where public good genuinely outweighs private profit, it's almost impossible under the current model of corporate centralization. The structure itself works against it.
Okay, so that's the corporate influence side. Now, moving beyond the boardrooms, let's talk about the digital pipes. The second big systemic failure. This crisis of algorithmic control and data exploitation.
Right.
For billions of people, let's face it, global social media platforms are the main way, maybe the only way, they get news.
That's true.
And the researchers, they call these platforms hostile to serious journalism. That's a strong statement.
It is. And the hostility, they argue, is baked right into the business model. These platforms, they aren't journalistic entities at heart. They're advertising machines.
Okay.
Their proprietary algorithms are designed, first and foremost, to maximize engagement.
Yeah.
Because engagement translates directly into the data they need to sell highly targeted ads. That's the engine.
And what kind of content maximizes engagement? It's probably not the thoughtful, complex stuff that takes time to digest.
Exactly. The algorithm looks for behavioral triggers.
Yeah.
Things like how fast something is shared, high comment counts, maybe even how quickly people scroll past something else, low dwell time. It uses these signals to decide what to amplify and what feeds those metrics most efficiently. Sensationalism, conflict, outrage, emotionally charged content, quality, nuanced reporting, often slower, more complex, and therefore, from the algorithm's cold perspective, just less valuable.
So the system itself actively punishes good journalism. If a reporter spends, say, 6 months on a really complex, data-heavy analysis of global trade, the algorithm basically ensures that piece gets buried. But if they fire off a polarizing hot take on some culture war issue, boom, amplified across millions of feeds.
It's a tragedy for civic discourse, really. This mechanism is what actively creates and reinforces those filter bubbles and echo chambers we hear so much about. This system literally rewards fragmentation and polarization because that guarantees high user retention. Keep people angry, keep them engaged. Quality reporting gets suppressed because the platform's main goal isn't maximizing your understanding of the world. It's maximizing the time you spend on the platform.
And while the reporters are burning out chasing these clicks and readers are stuck in their bubbles, the platforms are doing this systematic exploitation thing.
That's the core injustice, isn't it? It's surveillance capitalism applied directly to journalism. The research really highlights how these platforms treat reporters and readers, frankly, as products. They monetize our attention, our behavior, the content we create, often without real consent or fair compensation. The value the journalist generates, it gets captured by the platform, by the middleman.
And a key goal of this whole proposed shift we're talking about is to pull the entire journalistic process out of that exploitative system.
Exactly. And return the value that's being captured back to where it originates, the journalist and ultimately the reader who supports them.
Which leads us right into the economic unsustainability of the old model. It's devastating. Traditional journalism seems structurally incapable of surviving this digital onslaught. We see mass layoffs, shrinking newsrooms everywhere.
The documents describe it as a truly vicious cycle. It just feeds on itself because newsrooms rely on dwindling, really volatile ad revenue or increasingly tough paywalls. They're forced into chasing clicks just to keep the lights on, which pushes them towards that mass market sensationalism, the exact stuff the algorithms reward. But doing that compromises the depth and quality of their reporting.
And as quality drops, trust erodes even more, which makes people less willing to pay for a subscription.
And the ad revenue continues to shrink. It just spirals downwards. It's a death spiral.
Wow.
And the biggest casualty in all this, sustained, deep investigative work. The sources confirm it, the kind of reporting that truly holds power to account. The stuff that takes months, travel, legal resources, real expertise, it's become a financial luxury. Very few traditional outlets can consistently afford it under this economic structure anymore. The centralized money system makes essential, difficult truth-telling economically unsustainable.
It's crystal clear. Centralization breeds compromised integrity, algorithms actively working against quality, and ultimately financial ruin for the kind of reporting we actually need. So if the corporate structures and the algorithms are the problem, the solution being proposed is radical. Shift the power back to independent journalists and self-governing communities. And that solution, interestingly, starts not with tech, but with people. Here's where it gets really interesting. We need the human engine first, and that, according to the source, is citizen journalism.
Citizen journalism, or CJ, yeah. It's presented in this research as absolutely indispensable, the human element, and maybe the single most powerful disruptive force we have against centralized media control.
Okay, so how are we defining CJ here?
We're defining it as the gathering, verification, and sharing of news by informed, non-professional citizens, people who are actually embedded in the communities they're covering.
That emphasis on informed seems really key. This isn't just like random angry posts online.
Exactly. It's not just noise. The source frames CJ as providing that immediate, ground-level, really authentic view of the world. It acts as a critical complement, they say, and a necessary corrective to institutional reporting.
Which often has that Time delay, maybe a political filter, or just a detached bird's eye view.
Right. Centralized news desks, just by their nature, can't cover everything. They focus on big cities, national politics, but this vast, nuanced mosaic of reality that exists in local towns, niche industries, marginalized groups, it just goes unreported most of the time. CJ fills those huge information gaps.
Okay, let's dig into the core advantages they see in citizen-led reporting. First one, authenticity and immediate proximity. Makes sense. When a local crisis breaks or something significant happens.
The citizens right there are the first, often most reliable witnesses. They give you those immediate, raw, unvarnished accounts, often way before institutional reporters can even get there.
Yeah.
And maybe even more importantly, their reporting is soaked in local context, local history, local politics, things an outsider might miss.
Right, like when a big network flies someone in to cover a complex local issue.
Exactly. They often miss the crucial nuances, the decades of stuff simmering beneath the surface, the citizens living it. They're the ones best equipped to provide that context, which is the difference between just reporting what happened and actually explaining why it matters.
That proximity also feeds into the second big advantage, right? Diversity of voices.
Absolutely. Centralized outlets, chasing that mass market click strategy, they systematically ignore voices from marginalized communities or niche subjects.
Right.
Why? Because they don't fit the biggest possible demographic bucket. It's just business. CJ fundamentally democratizes the public sphere. It ensures those voices, those perspectives that are just routinely ignored by the mainstream, they finally get heard.
So it creates a richer, more complete picture of reality.
A much more accurate picture, ultimately. It's the essential counterbalance to the often limited, sometimes elite perspective you get from the centralized view.
Okay, but I have to push back a bit here. This sounds great in theory, but in a decentralized world, with no professional editor calling the final shots, how do you stop local bias just replacing corporate bias? If everyone's a journalist, how does truth actually get verified?
That's a fair question.
The source talks about enhanced transparency and accountability, but how does it really work without a central referee?
Okay, that is the absolute core challenge of this whole idea. And the source material spends a lot of time on it. The argument boils down to this. Accountability isn't achieved through centralized control. It's achieved through radical distributed transparency.
Distributed transparency, like unpack that for us. What does that look like?
Well, think about the old model. Accountability is detached, right?
Yeah.
A mistake happens, a corporation maybe issues a quiet retraction days later.
Yeah, buried on page A17.
Exactly. In this citizen-led community model, the relationship between the reporter and their audience is direct. It's collaborative. Fact-checking isn't outsourced to some hidden editorial board. It becomes a distributed community function.
So the community itself, the informed citizens who are paying attention, they become the auditors.
Precisely. Errors can be corrected quickly, maybe even in real time within the platform's discussion forums, because the reporter's work, their sources, their evidence, their methods is radically transparent from the start.
Ah, okay.
The reporter's held accountable directly by the very audience that funds them and relies on their work. If local bias starts creeping in, the broader community, especially if the platform connects different local groups, can act as a self-correcting mechanism. They challenge claims, vet things based on wider context.
So it bypasses that detached, often opaque corporate oversight entirely. Accountability becomes instant, public, and personal.
That's the theory. It's a different kind of accountability.
Yeah. Okay, so if citizen journalism is the engine, the human power, providing this authentic, local truth, the next critical piece is fuel for that engine, financial independence through direct patronage.
Yes.
The sources are really emphatic about this. Real journalistic independence demands financial independence. You can't escape the failures of centralization if you're still hooked on centralized, unpredictable ad money.
Absolutely not. The crucial move is shifting the reporter completely away from that ad-based economy, moving them towards stable, direct relationships with their specific readers, their community.
And this is where things like subscription and membership models become essential, not just optional extras.
Right. The reader pays directly for the value they receive. They fund the specific reporting they care about instead of just supporting some diluted, ad-sponsored product where their interests might be secondary. And these independent, decentralized platforms, they're designed to simplify collecting other crucial funds too, like targeted donations or grants for specific investigations. When money goes directly to a journalist's focused work, it ensures the funding aligns perfectly with the public interest and the journalist's mission. It's not filtered through some massive corporate budget where it might get diverted to, boost shareholder returns somewhere else.
Okay, so we have the human element, CJ. We have the necessary financial model, direct patronage. But as the source acknowledges, there's still a big hurdle. The technology.
Yeah.
How can independent reporters who are experts at finding stories, interviewing people, writing, how can they build and run a powerful, secure, self-governing digital platform without basically becoming tech gurus themselves?
Right. The power's there, the money's potentially there, but the delivery system needs to be simple, secure.
Bulletproof even.
And decentralized. Yeah. You can't just take these newly independent journalists and stick them back onto the old centralized big tech platforms. That just recreates the problem in a different guise. They need autonomy and security guaranteed by the tech itself. And that is precisely where the proposal for Web4.Community comes in. This is the infrastructure layer designed to make the whole vision actually work.
All right, this segment needs our deepest dive because this Web4.Community idea is the proposed radical answer. It's built on something called social networks as a service, or SNOS, and it's designed to be the ultimate tech solution for reporters who want total autonomy and security.
The core philosophy here is, non-negotiable, according to the source. Independent journalists must stop just renting space on big tech platforms.
Okay.
The biggest competitive edge Web4.Community offers. It's this pillar of absolute ownership and control over your own digital space.
So it fundamentally shifts the relationship. You're not just a user on someone else's site anymore, you're the architect.
Exactly. You're the architect and the owner, which means you're no longer subject to arbitrary policy changes or those sudden algorithm tweaks from a third party that can kill your reach overnight.
Right.
If you're the owner, you get unparalleled editorial freedom. You, the journalist, set the rules for your community. Content strategy, moderation guidelines, how discussions work, all of it. And crucially, the platform's policies align only with your journalistic mission. You're free from external pressure, whether it's big tech policy teams, governments trying to lean on you, or some distant corporate board.
And every bit of engagement, every loyal follower actually strengthens the reporter's brand, not the platform.
That's a huge point they emphasize. When you use a centralized platform, every comment, every share, every subscription primarily builds the platform's value, its network effect.
Yeah.
Here, the argument is every piece of engagement, every subscriber strengthens your network, your professional brand, exclusively. Your community's success becomes your direct, measurable, and ultimately monetizable asset.
Okay, and the most immediate benefit, tying back to the problems we discussed in segment 1, is escaping that algorithmic interference. This promises unthrottled communication.
Which is critical for quality news to survive, let alone thrive. Reporters can essentially say goodbye to the tyranny of the engagement algorithm.
Because they own the feed.
Exactly. Since the reporter owns the feed, every piece of news, every investigative thread, every update reaches their audience directly. Guaranteed. The platform has, as they put it, no hidden interests to silently suppress your reach or divert your audience's attention for profit. It's a direct, unmediated, secure channel.
That direct control brings us to the tech backbone. Security, censorship resistance, trust, all built on decentralization.
We're stepping into Web3 principles here.
We are.
Now, for our audience, they're smart, they follow this stuff, but maybe not deep crypto experts. How do these Web3 ideas apply directly to making journalism safer and more reliable?
Okay, so Web3 in this context boils down to a few key things. Decentralization, immutability, meaning things can't be easily changed once recorded, and often some form of tokenized ownership, though that's maybe less central here.
For a journalistic platform, this primarily means it's designed to be incredibly resilient, bulletproof against interference. By using decentralized architecture, think technologies like decentralized storage, data isn't all in one place, and peer-to-peer networking. Users connect directly. The platform is protected from single points of failure.
A single point of failure being like one server farm or one HQ that a government or a corporation could shut down or pressure.
Exactly right. If the platform and its data are spread across many independent computers globally, it becomes extraordinarily difficult, as the source says, for any single powerful entity to just take that news source offline.
So it's censorship resistant by design, no central off switch.
Precisely. And the data can be immutable, meaning once a critical piece of reporting is published, it can't easily be altered or deleted retroactively by some outside force.
Yeah.
That guarantees the integrity of the historical record.
That resilience is huge for high-stakes investigative work. And this decentralized setup must also offer top-notch source protection, right? Which is often a weak point in centralized systems.
Absolutely vital. Whistleblowers, confidential sources, they're the lifeblood of accountability journalism. The Web4 framework uses advanced, decentralized identity, DID, and secure data storage.
Okay, DID, simply put.
Simply put, instead of using one central account tied to all your personal info, DID lets users create and control their own digital identifiers. They can prove things about themselves without revealing everything. Think verifiable pseudonyms, essentially.
So a reporter could interact with a source, get sensitive tips, maybe even have the source verify certain claims, all without the source having to reveal their real legal identity to the platform owner or the wider world.
That's the goal. The source's privacy is built into the protocol itself. It aims for a level of security that traditional email, cloud drives, or centralized tip lines just can't match, because those are vulnerable to subpoenas or hacking of a central database.
Wow.
This kind of privacy is essential to protect people who risk a lot to expose wrongdoing.
Okay, so we've got the why. Decentralization offers editorial freedom and technological security. But let's circle back to the actual working journalist. Their job is reporting, interviewing, writing, not managing servers or debugging code.
Right.
If this whole model requires every indie reporter to basically become a tech CEO, it's not going to work for most people.
No, it absolutely wouldn't scale. And this is where that Snodas social networks as a service model becomes the real game changer.
Okay.
Snodas is the layer that removes that massive historical barrier to entry. Launching a custom feature-rich platform used to take months, huge amounts of capital, a dedicated dev team.
Yeah, prohibitive for most.
The Web4.Community model is designed for speed. A single reporter or a small group can supposedly launch a robust, modern, self-governing social network structure within hours. And the key, no coding required.
That level of democratizing the infrastructure itself is transformative. It just removes the complexity, the time, the huge cost. It potentially gives independent voices the same kind of digital firepower as massive corporations.
And crucially, these aren't just generic forum tools. They're specifically tailored, the source says, for the needs of news gathering, community vetting, and ethical sharing. They come preloaded with the tools a journalistic community needs, ready to activate and customize.
Okay, let's tick through those specific tools they say come ready to go.
All right, first, secure submission portals. This goes beyond just an anonymous email address. These use that DED framework we talked about, aiming for source protection through end-to-end encryption and decentralized storage.
Meaning the tip is encrypted on the source's end, travels securely, and is stored decentrally, only accessible by the reporter with their private keys.
That's the idea. It's the bedrock for serious investigative work. Yeah. Non-negotiable.
Okay. Second tool.
Organized discussion forums. This is where that distributed fact-checking we discussed earlier actually happens.
Right. How does the platform specifically help with that collaborative research and vetting?
Well, these forums are structured to help turn the audience from just passive readers into active research partners. They allow for tagging, annotating specific claims in published articles. They can invite community members who have specific local knowledge or technical expertise to weigh in on the evidence. So imagine a claim about local zoning policy. It gets tagged. Maybe only users verified, perhaps via DID, as local architects or city planners can contribute to that specific verification thread.
So it builds consensus on truth, openly, transparently, using collective intelligence but with some structure.
That's the aim, harnessing the wisdom of the informed crowd.
Okay, third tool.
Customizable content feeds. This is the direct answer to algorithmic bias.
Giving control back.
Exactly. The power over the feed returns to the reader. Instead of the platform deciding what you see based on secret engagement metrics, you define your own algorithm, essentially. Filter by topic, location, specific reporter, maybe even by the community's consensus rating on how well verified a piece is.
So if I only want verified reporting about my local city council from journalists I trust.
The platform ensures you see exactly that, unthrottled. It empowers you, the reader, by giving you back control over your information diet. It dismantles the filter bubble mechanism.
Makes sense. And finally, the essential piece. Integrated monetization tools. Connects the financial independence model directly to the tech.
Yes. The platform needs to support those direct patronage models seamlessly. Subscriptions are built in, using integrated payment systems, maybe leveraging decentralized finance for lower fees, but the sources also emphasize things like microtransactions.
For like premium content or specific deep dive reports.
Exactly. Letting readers pay small amounts for just the specific content they value most, making support easy, efficient, direct. The journalist gets rewarded instantly for creating value, which reinforces the whole economic sustainability loop for quality reporting.
It really does seem like for every failure identified in the centralized system, from corporate meddling to tech exploitation, there's a corresponding architectural solution proposed within this Web4 framework. #outro. So what does this all actually mean? We follow the whole narrative here. The systemic rot caused by centralization, eroding trust, manipulating feeds, the economic death trap for quality journalism. And the radical solution proposed is this convergence of two powerful forces: the on-the-ground local authenticity of citizen journalism, combined with the secure, decentralized, and apparently user-friendly capabilities of this Web4.Community framework.
And what it means, ultimately, is we're looking at something much bigger than just a new type of media outlet. This is fundamentally about trying to restore the democratic function of the press.
Yeah.
By creating journalistic communities that are, ideally, free from corporate pressures and empowered by decentralized, self-governing tech, you potentially achieve the highest standard of free media. News that's accountable, transparently and directly to the public it serves, not beholden to the market or the algorithm.
Reclaiming the public square, as the authors put it.
Exactly. They see it as an act of reclaiming the public square from entities that primarily sought to monetize it.
It's a profound shift in control. And the source material, it ends with this really clear, ambitious call to action. Take back your news. Take back your independence.
It does. And that imperative leaves us and you listening with a necessary challenge to think about. If the responsibility for the infrastructure, for verification, for funding, if all of that becomes radically decentralized for the average person consuming news, does decentralization automatically mean higher quality? Or does it just shift the huge burden of figuring out what's true entirely onto the reader's shoulders?
That is the core tension, isn't it, for mass adoption? If the big established brands fade, that sort of psychological safety net goes with them. Legacy brands, for all their flaws, carry that weight of familiarity.
Right.
So what are the subtle but really significant psychological shifts needed for a reader to fully trust a self-governing community where accountability is direct but distributed over, say, a 100-year-old newspaper brand, even if that brand has clear systemic flaws now?
Yeah.
That shift in our behavior as news consumers, moving from relatively passive consumption to more active, maybe even skeptical participation, that seems like the final essential piece for this decentralized future to actually take root and flourish.